Entering the Mayo experience.
That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dog or Pass podcast. This for UFC Ottawa. We are back. 1 week off. Sorry, guys. You know, my co-host here, Cody Saftic, was out of the country. I had a lot of people reach out to me. They wanted to take your seat.
Oof.
It would have been weird.
Would it have?
This show, this is gonna pull the heartstrings a bit, but this show is just an opportunity for me to sit down with my buddy, talk about the upcoming mixed martial arts contests.
That's how it started.
That's what it means to me.
Yeah.
We started before there was ever a platform or anything. Nobody wanted to hear us talk or anything. And it just would have been weird. We've never had an episode where like me or you wasn't on the show.
Well,
like you used to have the Pat one, but that was different.
Yeah, that was like a little
altogether.
DK hit, right? You never really broke it down in depth. Okay, well, here's a strange coincidence for you, Paul. So the last show we recorded was the Russia card, and we recorded on April 13th.
Yeah.
April 13th, 2019. On April 12th, 2014 was the first episode of Bookie Beatdown, right? So the last show that we recorded was the day after our 5th year anniversary of doing the show. The very first show we ever did was UFC Fight Night, Roy Nelson versus Nogueira in Abu Dhabi.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a 10-minute interview with Nogueira while I was down there. So like, just a strange coincidence. 5-year anniversary in the place where we did our first show. Talking
Roy
to
Nelson, yeah.
one
Roy
half
Nelson.
of the main fucking starch. I didn't bring
You
that
asked?
up.
No, yeah, don't ask him about that. His toes curled up like he got.
He's in great shape. I ain't bringing that shit up. No chance. Anyways, it was a great time. But yeah, thanks. It always good being back talking with my buddy about some fights.
Yes, sir. So we are in Ottawa. Little fun fact about me. I'm a alum from the University of Ottawa. Spent 5 years there. Had to do the victory. Well, when you like to get around like I do, a couple classes have to be dropped. You end up in situations where you're like, I need an 85 on this final to pass this class.
Gone.
Like you end up in media for a reason, right? Like I'm not a freaking doctor, right? So I obviously had a little bit too much fun in the city of Ottawa. And, a couple classes. I need an 85 to even pass this thing. That ain't happening. So then you would obviously just drop out of that class so that you just wouldn't fail. It looks better on your transcript to just like drop out. It's a really stupid system because people just drop out, but it's so that they can make more money. So yeah, I had to go back for a 5th year. 5th year was great though because I had like two classes, and I partied even more, but did fun.
And
got my degree. So I know like if you want greasy spoons, if you're gonna be down in Ottawa, I know like all and you're not familiar with the area. I know all the restaurants, where to get cheap eats, what's good, what's not,
clear, though.
What bars to go to, what type of experience to have. I have lots of friends who still live down there. So that's what I probably bring to this. Cody, on the other hand, is a matchmaker for Canadian regional MMA. So it's like you've probably tried to book a bunch of these guys onto cards over the years.
Definitely.
So when we break down these fights, especially this week, I'm sure some people probably already do it. But when we break down fights, maybe I would lean towards the guy who actually tries to matchmake these guys. That's all I'm saying.
Well, hopefully is an edge because, I like a lot of the lines on this card. So let's try to make some money here. I mean, these are the opportunities to make some money. And this is MMA. It's a crazy sport, but let's just hope it goes the way we think it will be.
Cody, before we got on here, said that this is a great card to make lots of money. So I'm gonna be
shout out to Pogi Rob.
Yeah.
Do the full card parlay. Ride it, baby. Let's do this.
All right. Wow. All right. Before we get to any of that, let's 2 weeks ago, winner was Team Player. You should have 20 DK dollars. I don't know, but I'm assuming considering it was 2 weeks ago, 20 DK dollars is in your account. So congratulations to that. This week's challenge, what you got to do: 1, give the episode a like. 2, share your DK handle. And 3, people are really pissed off about Stipe Miocic getting the title shot and Brock Lesnar dropping out and all this other stuff. We're going to talk about that a little bit at the end. I have a little bit of greasy theory on all of this because,
Paul's getting into the greasy
I'm a conspiracy theorist at heart. But who would you rather see DC fight if you don't want to see him fight Stipe Miocic? You got Ngannou out there, obviously John Jones is
like that makes
not necessarily an option, because if they're gonna, they would have to fight at 205 maybe.
I don't know. Why not see
Like-
John Jones if he beats Thiago Santos, or what else does he do? Move up, right? I don't know. You got options.
You could literally write.
You could write anything.
You could write Dmitry Smolyakov, and you are in. As long as
you could put Greg Hardy, and you were entered into a draw.
Yes.
And theoretically, the prize department could pick your handle. So, like the show, leave your handle, and who would you like to see one Daniel Cormier fight next?
And I want to say that the band is back together. We got our boy Chad back behind the cameras again, which
We're
is
rolling now.
which is awesome. Probably helps the energy of the show in
And
general.
Cookie
Less
won her
things for me to
first-
think about, the better.
Cookie won her first race of the year on Saturday.
Hey!
Wow. We're going to London on Tuesday to try to make it 2 in a row.
All right, let's go Cookie. All right, let's get into the action. We have a lightweight main event between IAQUINTA and Donald Cowboy Cerrone. IAQUINTA 8,400 and a minus 125 favorite. Cerrone is 7,800 plus 105. Who you got?
I'm gonna go with Raging IAQUINTA. Line's obviously close. I'm not gonna say. A lot of people are saying, "How could you pass up dog money on Cerrone?" It's not real dog money. It's a it's a near pick'em fight. It's a near even fight. You're not going to get a huge edge either way. Donald Cerrone is at this stage in his career where honestly he's kind of been there the last little bit. He's a gatekeeper role type of fighter. He is a savvy veteran. He's been around the block 10 times. He's challenged for a title. He's been at the highest level of the mountain. He can still teach a young fighter a thing or two. Now we look at Dad Cerrone. It looks like he's on another level. He tunes up Mike Perry. He beats up Alex Hernandez. But that's the role that he's in, Paul. He's there to teach younger fighters a thing or two. Mike Perry is green and unrefined. He's going to beat Mike Perry all day long and show him a thing or two. Alex Hernandez, he's undefeated. He's explosive. He's young, he's green, he needs to be taught a thing or two, and Donald Cerrone can provide that. The other guys that are established in the division, guys that have kind of been fighting at the upper echelon for a little while, they've got Donald's number. Donald's never going to win that big fight to set him up for another title shot. I just don't think he's there yet. He's got a lot of fun fights left in him. He's got a lot of entertaining fights left in him. But again, he's got to be matched up against the right opponent where he's going to be able to lean on his experience at this point. Or he can, he's a good striker and he's got good wrestling. I don't know that any of that's going to be a factor against IAQUINTA because the wrestling got to be off the table. I mean, taking down IAQUINTA, very difficult. Holding him down, also difficult. And as far as holding him down goes, you're going to pound him out. You're going to submit him. All very difficult. The guy's extremely durable, but I think his takedown defense is going to check out in this situation. So now we've got Donald Cerrone versus IAQUINTA in a striking battle. This is 3 rounds. I don't mind Donald Cerrone whatsoever because he's a savvy veteran and he's the Ranger fighter and he likes to mix up his kicks versus more of just a boxer type fighter in IAQUINTA that maybe he can squeak out 2 of those 3 rounds. But in a 5-round situation, Al's always coming forward. Al's always throwing the big hands, and Al's got more than enough power to hurt this guy at some point. Stuff the takedowns, bop him up. His last fight with Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee is a young, agile, good fighter. In 3 rounds, he could have very well had IAQUINTA's number, but this is 5 rounds, and Raging Al keeps coming forward. He's dealt with a lot of injuries in the past. He's dealt with a lot of inactivity in the past. But when this guy's on...
And it feels like he's gotten past like a bunch of his gripes and stuff now. Like
because they're paying him the money that he knows he's deserving. And he's headlining
well, he probably
a card.
wishes that he was getting paid even more money because
Wow.
it's Raging Al that we're talking about, right? But I think he's gotten over a lot of the hurdles that you were like, how dedicated is this guy? Like, I know he still does the real estate and stuff, but it seems like he's a lot more... invested in his MMA career right now than he was, say, 2-3 years ago.
I think you deal with the uncertainty when you're IAQUINTA, 29 years old with 2 major knee surgeries, and you get the secondary job, and now you're selling some real estate, and you get your knees done, and you say, you know what, I'm not fighting in the UFC anymore. You basically retire. Then they coax you out for 1 more, and then, hey, this Khabib fight, it falls off last minute. Now you get paid a good amount of money. But you're right, he's gotten over his issues with the company. All of a sudden, he's not being vocal about, screw these guys. The fans, they've rallied behind him. They're not booing him anymore. They're cheering this guy. He's a fan favorite. And his knees, well, they've held up. The surgery's successful. His training, always been training with a high-level guys out in New York, the Matt Serra team. He's always a guy that's going to be making improvements. And in this situation, I've got a 32-year-old IAQUINTA. I don't think he's shop worn. I think he's got a good chin on him. I think, again, takedown wrestling, his takedown defense should play a good part. His submission defense should play a good part. He just keeps his fight standing. Yeah, he might lose the first round. He might lose the first 2 rounds, or at least they're going to be competitive early rounds. But I think in a 5-round fight, he'll eventually find his rhythm. He'll eventually find that pressure. And Donald Cerrone, for as good as he is, when he gets into fights with technical fighters that have stinging power, he gets caught at some point. Against Mike Perry, very green, not going to happen. Against Alex Hernandez, maybe not going to happen. But this is a different level.
I agree.
So
I agree completely on this one.
It's a great line. It's minus 125 for Al, $8,400. You're going to get your value out of it. You know, if you're going to play multiple lineups and you're looking for a punt play,
of course
like Donald Cerrone is Donald Cerrone, but Al's got to be the pick for this.
Yeah, you're going to have to roster somebody from the main event here because they're right in that mid-range, and we know like these types of 5-round main events, mid-range, like that person pretty much always ends up on the winning lineup, you know?
Here's another thing that people are overlooking as well. Those guys from Serra Longo, they have good game plans. Now, whether a guy like Chris Weidman can execute the game plan, whatever, but Aljamain Sterling and IAQUINTA, they fight smart game plans. And Donald Cerrone's been preying on guys that fight terrible fucking game plans, right? Mike Perry, he's emotional, he's hot-headed. Hernandez, he's emotional, he's hot-headed. Yancy Medeiros, he kind of made him emotional. He stung him. He made him emotional. Against Al, if he fights a good game plan over the 5, he should. So I know Cerrone's a fan favorite, and I think that's why it's that close
here.
of a line.
And that's why the line is it's actually moving. It's actually moving closer. I would continue to wait because people moved like 5 points overnight. Basically, I make the boards the night before type of thing, and then they usually simmer, and I update the odds before we come on here. And most of them have like moved like 5 points here. Money is coming in on Cerrone right now.
Well, fair enough.
Or seemingly. All right, we move to the co-main event. We have Derek Brunson taking on Elias Theodorou. Brunson is 8,200. Theodorou is 8,000, and it is a straight pick of minus 110. I want Brunson. I think Brunson is getting a bad shake right now. Listen, we know his flaws. The guy runs forward with his chin straight up, looking for you if you have any sort of pop to land one on that chin, knock him out. But when this guy's a better athlete than his opponent, that's when we see him like blasting through a Sam Alvey and so on and so forth. I don't really understand why the line is actually so close. I guess it's because people hate Brunson at this point. Like, he got knocked out by Jacare twice.
He's on a bad streak. He's in enemy territory.
He kind of, against Anderson Silva, like he didn't really do much. He wasn't able to pull the trigger. But Anderson is a tremendous athlete who can do crazy shit. Like, we talk about Elias all the time. And like, we like him. He's been around the office back in the day when I worked at your office. Right. And he's a great guy. He's a great guy, good guy on social media, everything. Like, there's nothing. But I mean, like, his strategy is effective. It's gotten him past a bunch of like real fringe top 25 type of guys in the UFC of maintaining distance and throwing these like super soft kicks. You have to be able to put Derek Brunson in his place. Like, when he's charging forward at you, you need to have something stinging so that he doesn't charge forward on you. And I don't think Elias Theodorou has anything like that. The one thing he does have going for him is that he is very durable. So maybe if Brunson, blows his wad in the first 7 minutes, trying to chase a finish, isn't able to finish, Theodorou could maybe come on late and steal the fight, maybe even get a late TKO or something like that. But yeah, you gotta be able to stop Derek Brunson in his tracks, and Elias Theodorou is not the matchup for that.
Yeah. Honestly, I think we're on the same page again in this co-main event. Elias Theodorou, he's fighting good game plans. Is that he can stick and move on these guys. The punching power, what punching power? You don't ever see it. He hardly even throws punches. But he kicks and he moves, he kicks and he moves, he kicks and he moves. Against guys that are going to be slower than him or are going to fight a game plan like Eric Anders, where Eric Anders is realistically a better athlete than Elias Theodorou, but doesn't let his hands go. Then you can just kick and move, kick and move, kick and move. Guy's on a winning streak right now versus Derek Brunson, who's on a losing streak. But the fact of the matter is that that's going to be an incredibly difficult game plan to implore against Derek Brunson, who's faster than you, and he's going to cut off the ring. He's not great at cutting angles to cut off the ring. He's just so fast, he closes the distance and gets a hold of you. He's going to be able to muscle Theodorou up against the cage. He's a better wrestler. I think he'll be able to take down Elias Theodorou. And if it just stays as a stand-up battle, it should be Elias kicking and moving versus Brunson tracking him down, landing a couple big shots, close the distance, try to take him down. Elias has had trouble against that style kind of in the past, in the sense that Cesar Ferreira was able to take him down, and Derek Brunson's going to be able to take him down if that's the case. Eric Anders hurt Elias in that fight. We saw Elias playing that game of kicking and moving, but it only took one, and he was hurt. We've also seen him hurt in subsequent fights as well, like the Thiago Santos fight or maybe the Brad Tavares fight, where it's like you can get to him and hurt him. He'll shoot a takedown. You stuff the takedown. You can hit him, you can hurt him. Brunson's going to be able to hurt him. Brunson's going to be able to close the distance. Brunson's going to be able to keep up with him. But you make a great point. Elias finds a way to win. The guy's 16-2. I think that's way farther than anybody would have ever thought he would have gone because he finds a way to win. And his way to win here would be tire this guy out. Like, we know that he doesn't have cardio issues. It's that he fights at an unsustainable pace for 7 or 8 minutes. And Elias is a guy that has never been finished, has his chin checks out.
It's true.
And if he's able to take that damage early, then he's in Ottawa. The second and third round don't have to be pretty.
No.
He just has to be doing a little bit more or the same level as Brunson, and the crowd should be cheering him, and his section will get fired up, and they'll squeak him out a decision. So there is some inadvertent danger, but I'm willing to play it because it's even. It's minus 110. If Brunson was minus 180,
this one moved like 15 points overnight.
I would be
Brunson was like minus 125 when I made the board originally.
Yeah, so I get.
So maybe even wait more. It seems like the money coming in right now is the opposite of what we think.
Yeah, it's very strange.
At least in these first 2 fights.
Very strange. Yeah. But I think in Elias's case, he's the hometown guy. He's on a winning streak. He finds a way to victory. If you're going to pick him, I think you almost got to pick him by decision. But those are all things that the way to beat Elias is to counteract his ability to stick and move. But the way to beat Brunson is to knock him fuck out. Like that's the way to beat him. Guys do not beat him when they stay in the fight with long periods of time, other than Anderson Silva. But you try fighting a guy you grew up watching. That happens to almost everybody.
Yeah, like Israel Adesanya just won a
interim. And it happened to Israel Adesanya.
Yeah.
And it happened to Derek Brunson. You stare the man in the eyes and
you've seen all of his highlights. You've seen all of his moves.
I got
on the highlight videos and stuff like that. And you're just like, oh, I see that look in his eye. He's about to give me a front kick to the face.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that happens to a lot of people, and in this case, I'm going to give Derek Brunson a pass on that. Then you look at his other losses. It's like, well, Jacare caught him. Well, Jacare is an elite level fighter who looked a little old on the weekend, but I mean, this is a good version of him, and he knocks him out. And then Izzy, well, here's a guy that's the current interim champion, so Derek Brunson's fighting the absolute creme de la creme, whereas Elias is beating Trevor Smith and on a terrible losing streak, Eric Anders. And those are the length of his victories. So I think he's in trouble here. I think he called out Brunson specifically, whereas maybe he sees something in Brunson's style. Probably I'll survive the first 7 minutes, but he pissed Brunson off. Yeah, Brunson's on a bad streak himself, so he's highly motivated and he's in really good shape. And again, I think his ego's on the line and his job's on the line. So we should see a better version of him. I see him getting the decision anyways.
We have Shane Burgos taking on Cub Swanson. Shane Burgos, 8,800, minus 170 favorite. Cub Swanson is 7,400, plus 150. When they originally opened this line, I think Burgos opened at like plus 135. I know that like it's really small limits and stuff that move those lines. I think 5 times obviously is the one that opens up all of these lines, but it's like it got slammed. It got slammed really fast and obviously flipped. And probably rightfully so. But haven't we seen this story before? But the problem is, like, I just don't know how invested Cub is anymore. He's a family man, and it's him and Kendra Perez, who used to like do some like UFC promotional stuff.
Yeah, way back in the day. That's Pride and stuff.
Yeah, I just don't know how dedicated he is anymore. But like, this feels very similar again to like the Korean Superboy versus Cub Swan, a fight in Canada.
Can Cub do that again? Does he still got that left in him?
What's that? I don't know if he had, and that's the question, right?
That's my question.
I'm just worried. I told myself that day that I would never doubt Cub Swanson in a dog fight again. I gotta see like maybe his interviews this week, see if he seems fired up, or I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'm still a little bit hesitant too. Like on my official pick would be Burgos. I love his stand-up game, his striking from range, his jab is excellent. He's a good young prospect for sure, but Cub's an old dog. He's seen all of the tricks. He may be ready for it. I don't have a great feel for this one. Do you?
Yeah, this one is kind of a trap for myself personally because I love Burgos, and I think Burgos has got the style, Burgos has got the mentality, Burgos has got the goods. I think he beats Cub Swanson. However, yeah, Cub could be a tricky play here. Burgos' style, this is my shit. Just go forward. No nonsense. Take a punch to give a punch. He's always going after you. It doesn't matter if Charles Rose is up 2 rounds on him. He's tracking this guy down. He goes for it. But that style is only effective if you can take the damage coming back at you. And similar to my boy Jared Gordon, when you can't take the damage coming back at you, it is a serious problem. And that's what I'm kind of seeing out of Burgos. Burgos got hurt against Charles Rosa, but it's all good. He's down 2 rounds. He comes back. He wins that 3rd round. That fight with Calvin Kattar, he was getting hit lots. And unfortunately, in the 3rd round, he just couldn't take the shots anymore and folds up. Kind of a tough go for him. That next fight with Kurt Holloway, I got a lot riding on Shane Burgos. He is going to smoke Kurt Holloway. What could Kurt Holloway possibly do to him? He stings him and drops him. And thankfully, Shane Burgos threw up that armbar and caught him. But his chin maybe is starting to slide. And when your style is march guys down and take a shot to give a shot, it becomes dangerous. And you're right. Cub Swanson's a savvy dog. He's gonna chin check you at some point.
If you're gonna go into war mode, we've seen Cub go into war mode and succeed.
He's quick, but he's got sneaky punches. How he sets up his punches is sneaky. And the thing with Burgos is he high guards and comes straight at you. So all Cub really needs to do is step off, pivot off, and snipe him, and something could get. Now,
the Ross Pearson fight back in the day.
Of course, that's a great example. Now, Cub Swanson also leaves Greg Jackson's because he's become stagnant, and he spent a lot of time with Corey Sandhagen and TJ Dillashaw, who, theoretically speaking, are kind of the masters at stepping the fuck off, blasting the guy, and getting out of there. Cub's always been known for his movement, but yeah, he's getting older. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. You know where he fucked up? Remember a couple years ago, or more than a couple years ago now, remember Joe Lozon? They offer him a contract. They say, we're going to give you some good money, Joe. If you accept this contract, you cannot turn down, you don't get an opponent selection anymore. Who you're fighting is who you're fighting from when we tell you. And Joe Lozon turns down the contract and accepts a smaller contract where he has a direct influence on who his opponents are because he just wants a bonus hunt and just wants to fight guys at his level. Had he taken the other contract, he would have never gone an easy fight again. And he maybe wouldn't have quite have been Joe Lozon.
Yeah.
That's what Cub Swanson ran into. He wanted a title shot. He wanted a title shot. He wanted a title shot. He rallies for this title shot. They don't give it to him. But after that Doo Ho Choi fight, here's the money. Here's the money, Cub. Okay. He gets a fight with Lobov. There's a toss-up. And since then, it's murder's row. And whereas 3-fight losing streak, he needs to fight a guy that's at his level, maybe a little over the hill, maybe a fun fight, maybe a rematch. You know, let's say him and BJ Penn. BJ's probably out of his upcoming fight. Maybe a bad selection, but you know what I mean. You know, let him fight a Dennis Seaver again. Let him fight. There's options for him. But a young, hungry talent like Burgos that brings the pain and just brings a vicious style, that's really not what Cub should be facing at this point in his career. However, he could win. So when I look at, it's 2 close first fights, right? The main event, the co-main event, they're close. This is a fight I'd love to take Burgos. And deep down, I am still saying Burgos, but I would likely pass from putting it everywhere because Cub Swanson at $7,400, if that is your saving money play on DraftKings, it could be a nice one, my friend. I think he does have a certain shot here to just catch Burgos if the kid's slipping.
This next one, I'm going to have a really fast hot take. And that's it. We have Merab Dvalishvili taking on Brad Katona. 8,600 Dvalishvili, 7,600 Katona, minus 160 and plus 140 respectively. You're going to give me 8,600 for a wrestle heavy guy, a guy who has like 50, like in 3 fights, he has 50, 52, 53 takedown attempts.
Nuts.
Against somebody who trains at SBG Ireland. Merab is the DK play. I don't know about a bet, but Merab is the DK play.
Yeah,
in this mid-range for me.
Yeah, no, you know what? He's mid-range, but $8,600 is a lot. My worry is that if he does get the takedowns, Brad's got to get up and he's got to get him back down. Brad's got to get up and he's got to get him back down because he's not going to score a ton with the striking. His striking's high.
The guy's super. He's not going to score with striking. But like, you just want takedown city. Yeah. And I think that would be a strategy. Like when he lost to Ricky Simon has proven to be like incredibly.
Did he lose to Ricky Simon?
No, well,
on paper he did. But I strongly disagree with that shit.
But I mean, Ricky Simon has proven to be super smart, good wrestling pedigree before. It's just like you have a SBG Ireland Canadian guy with a weird accent that. I don't know if I'm really accepting this guy as Canadian because that accent is fake.
No,
I'm not buying it.
It's like a speech impediment, like a learning disability. Yeah, that's harsh. Would you make fun of poor Chad Laprise?
I think I have on this exact same show.
I have heard people talk shit, but they don't know. I'm sure they
not to this. I don't know. A guy training of SBG Ireland going up against a wrestler. I got and like a
all you need to
very
know.
very strong 135-pound wrestler. This is Merab. I don't think it's going to be a very good night for Canadian fighters in general. When I look up and down this card,
So that's my thought on this: is that this is a bit of lazy ass matchmaking.
yeah, they're not setting us up for dubs. That's for sure.
No, but in this case,
The judges are going to have to really reach down and find that that little home cooked little poutine.
This is what I don't understand, right? Let's say you're the UFC's marketing team. You're sitting in a room and you're like, boys, we got a hell of a problem building stars, man.
Yeah.
We're having trouble building stars, man. It's like, oh, dude, but like, who are some of the big stars that we've had over the years? Oh, well, George St. Pierre, because he had all of Canada behind him. Conor McGregor, man, he had all of Ireland behind him. Oh, geez, we're seeing an Israel Adesanya or these guys that got a nation behind them. These Americans, they don't sell that great. Ronda did. She's a woman. It's a little bit different. Okay, we need to grow these other market fighters. Okay, we got Brad Katona. He's not the next JSP, but we got Brad Katona. He's undefeated, and he's the Ultimate Fighter champion, and we're in Canada. And you give him Merab Dvalishvili, a guy
Who
that
trains with
maybe
IAQUINTA. They're probably going to be ready. Like
maybe
he's
Katona beats this guy, but it ain't going to be pretty. He's not going to go out there and add to his highlight reel. He's not going to get people excited. And then more chances than not, he spends half the fight on his back and loses a decision. Now he loses his undefeated record. Oh, tough champion. Who cares? You know, he just lost 2 fights into his career. And you take off the shine, and it makes no sense whatsoever. But that's the situation we're in. Let's give him a guy with an unflattering record who no casual fight fan has heard of. And people at the arena that are there just to watch a fight, they don't know who the fuck this guy is. And he's going to shoot upwards of, his average says, he's going to shoot in the neighborhood of 15 and 20 takedowns. like, really? That's who you decide to go with? Now, I'm a huge Brad Katona fan. He could win this fight. He's a better boxer. I believe he's better at jiu-jitsu, but
there's a strength disparity.
Who bets against power? Like hey, we're the same, right? Like, this is the style that wins fights. You know, he's what, 1-2 in the UFC. He could be 3-0 in the UFC. I mean, his fight with Frankie Saenz, he lost despite scoring 20 takedowns. I still didn't understand how that one happens. And then obviously I didn't think he got like the ref physically was like, lie back down. They wouldn't have done that. He would have stood up, and that would have been the end of it. So the Ricky Simon fight is whatever. And then his last fight, it's like, okay, no more weird shit, dude. And he looked good. So against Brad Katona's shown on the Ultimate Fighter House and in his couple appearances in the UFC that, like, his takedown defense is not great. His ability to scramble and get back up, that's okay. But against Dvalishvili, that's a problem. And you're right. He trains with IAQUINTA out there with Aljamain Sterling, who's in fantastic shape, spent the camp with them. They're all peaking at the same time. Going to be tough for Brad Katona. So my heart wants to just say Brad Katona because, again, I love this guy, but styles make fights. This is a bad matchup for him.
Walt Harris takes on Sergey Spivak in the heavyweight division. Walt Harris, 8,900 minus 155 favorite. Spivak is 7,300 and 135. Watching some video on Spivak before we came in. It's like, he's 23, super young heavyweight. He doesn't look great. But, like, a lot of times you watch heavyweights, like, prospects and stuff. And, like, you know, he's not the most fleet of foot. Walt Harris will have an advantage on the feet in terms of maintaining range and so on and so forth. And this kid has finished, like, all of his fights, like, super early. One of them was, like, by neck crank. He's fighting a lot.
Tony Lopez by neck crank, may I add.
Actually, yeah, he's fought the Tony Lopez, and there was some other.
Travis Fulton.
It was Travis Fulton, yes.
Way past his prime.
So he's fought some old school legends of record padding. Like, they're not the worst. They beat
Tony Lopez is a gangster. But
yeah,
he's
they beat
man.
absolute, like, bums. But, like, at this stage in their career, but, like, you know, at least he won those. He's not fighting guys that are complete, and he won them, you know, handily, very handily, first round. So I don't know. I don't mind this kid. I just don't know. My issue with obviously debuting fighter, bright lights, yada yada yadas, and the fact that, like, we just don't know what. Does this kid have a gas tank? Does he have any sort of gas tank? He doesn't look tired when he's smashing dudes or neck cranking them in the first 4 minutes. Like, it doesn't look like he's getting tired, but Walt Harris doesn't have the best gas tank, but he has proven that he can go 3 rounds. I don't know. After watching the tape, kind of leaning towards Spivak. I think Walt Harris is going to be a pretty popular play, actually, on DraftKings, just because everyone's a lot more familiar with him, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Well, I'm interested in your take, though.
Yeah, this is actually a case of Walt Harris versus Walt Harris because he's a very talented guy. The skill is there, but he finds a way to beat himself. Like, I don't know what it is. Either he gets himself disqualified or gets himself caught very early or gasses out or it's a highlight reel finish. And then his last fight against Andrei Arlovsky, it's like none of the above. Like, he didn't really gas. He just never found a rhythm. The power, not there. The fluidity, not there. It's just a dumpy performance out of him. He gets a split decision, but I think people expected a lot more out of him. So now you have him here against Spivak, and quite frankly, Spivak's coming in a relatively short notice. It was supposed to be Walt Harris, Alexei Olenek. So Olenek gets pulled for the Overeem fight. Walt Harris now gets short notice replacement. He's way more athletic than this guy. He's a bigger power puncher than this guy. He's an all-around better striker than this guy. The fight stays standing, which is probably going to stay standing for long periods of time, I would imagine. He's going to have the advantage. The one thing is that this Spivak guy can't strike for shit, and he knows it. So he'll close the distance and he'll get a hold of you. And Walt
he's
Harris,
pretty good in the clinch.
Yeah, Walt Harris is a big boy, but like he's not above getting clinched up, and he's not above getting clinched up against the fence. And this guy loves just to knee away at the thigh, and knee away at the body, and taking down Walt Harris with a single leg would actually be quite a task because he's a shorter guy. He's very athletic. He's got good hips. He's a low center and he's 265, you know, like he cuts down to the limit. But those outside trips, that's the way to get those guys down. And that's kind of where Spivak's able to. Thing is that he's real green. He really hasn't fought anybody at this level. He hasn't had a full training camp. Walt Harris has been around. He's fought in the UFC almost 10 times now. He's been there. You know, he's lost to a young 23-year-old Ukrainian before when Nikita Krylov booted him in the head 20 seconds. But think about how much he's improved since then. So he's not at ATT anymore, which I don't like, but one would have to imagine that he's going to win this fight. Problem is, he's at $8,900.
Yeah,
and if he shits
expensive.
the bet again, like he did against Andrei Arlovsky, he's not going to score up to that. The minus 155 is a lot more tempting, but again, he's a middling heavyweight, and we all know how dangerous that is. Taking on an unknown middling heavyweight who sports an undefeated record and is 10 years younger than him. Yeah. So there's a lot of red flags there. I would say because of that price tag, you would pass on Walt Harris. And again, if you thought Spivak had the goods, that could be a decent punt play, but I'm just not.
Yeah, I'm not sold either.
He's very green still.
Yeah, we have Andrew Sanchez taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. Sanchez is 8,700 minus 160 favorite. Barriault is 75 and plus 140. He got
fun style clash, baby. So Marc-Andre Barriault is a guy that's worked for his UFC contract and you know, deservedly so earned. Been around for a long time. Quebec middleweight. Basically, he fights the best guys available to him on the Quebec scene, and he's been winning. He's been beating all the guys that they've set up from TKO. That's the best organization in Canada, and he's passed all of his tests. Jumps up to 205 pounds just strictly because of lack of talent in TKO. That's no disrespect to TKO, but Canada doesn't particularly have heavyweights or light heavyweights to begin with. So this middleweight, who's a good-sized middleweight, can also jump up to 205, win a couple fights, and be the TKO champ. TKO actually, look at Jesse Ronson. He's their 155-pound champ and their 170-pound champ. That Charles Jourdain that just signed, he was their 145-pound champ and their interim 155-pound champ. And Marc-Andre Barriault is the middleweight champion in the light. They have 3 champs. What? That's just the way it is. So now that he's back at 185, this is his better weight class. The guy's a meat truck. He's tough. His wrestling's not great. His striking's not great. His chin's good. His cardio's not great, but his desire to win just allows him to keep coming at you, keep pushing the pace. I've seen more skilled fighters
struggles with the pace.
This is the exact problem.
This line is
this
actually
is a fun fight, man.
Been moving hard towards Sanchez though, which is funny.
Yeah, I'm betting Sanchez because I'm gonna bet. Yeah, I'm gonna bet that Sanchez is a guy that this is exactly what's happened to him twice now, and he's able to rebound.
Like
he gasses
Ryan
and
fucking
just
James gassed this guy out and finished him in round 3. Like, that's a massive red flag.
Touching him left, right. With the Anthony Smith fight, you give him a pass because Smith's a pretty big guy and he's a finisher and he goes for it. But yeah, the Ryan James fight's like
that's the
James is a black belt.
If I would
James was not a striker.
Put minus money on Sanchez after seeing that because like James, you know, good old Canadian boy. We love him and everything, but it's like that guy is not at this level, and you got tooled by him in round 3 because you gassed out too hard.
And that's why I think you're
durable.
That's why I think you're getting a close line here. Is that people are going to look at it and say, "Gee, Sanchez is a guy that he seemingly needs to just have his way with you, or if you're able to rally late, if you're able to make him work, you're able to tire him out, you can rally and you can come on late." Marc-Andre Barriault That's exactly his path to victory here. He's going to get taken down by Sanchez in the early going. It's that if he can make Sanchez work and tire him out, he could definitely come on 2 and 3. If this was for the TKO middleweight title, 5 rounds, very interesting. But it's a 3-round fight, and Sanchez is a superior grappler. He's a superior wrestler. Now, when Sanchez won the Ultimate Fighter, man, remember he took down Khalil Roundtree, and it was just like, clown this guy. And then he takes on Trevor Smith. It's like, hey, now he's taking on a good grappler, a black belt, a guy that wrestled collegiately. You see what he is able to offer. The Anthony Smith fight, Paul, he's up 2 rounds against Anthony Smith. Going into the third, the commentators compliment him on his cardio. Guy hardly looks like he's huffing and puffing, but he completely falls apart in the third. The Ryan James fight, he 10-8s Ryan James in the first round. He dominated Ryan James in the first round. Almost killed him.
Some refs would have stopped it.
The second round, he's fucking tired. He's exhausted now. And the third round, he falls apart. Now, in his last fight against Marcus Perez, he went to 3 rounds. He didn't tire. He looked better. He trains at Factory X out of Colorado. He's only 31 years old.
Doesn't he kind of look like Ben Askren ate Ben Askren in that photo?
It looks like Ben Askren if Ben Askren didn't get a perm. That's his natural hair. But
before he fixes himself up. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, dude, I want him to go out there and fight the way Ben Askren would fight. That Barriault is a big, thick, strong dude, but he's light on experience against elite level talent. TKO never brought in a guy that could wrestle like Sanchez. Yeah. This guy has never fought a guy that has the skill set that Andrew Sanchez has. So Sanchez has got to do that. He's also a decent striker. He's versatile. Touch, move, go to the takedown. So that's what I want out of him here. I want him to lead Barriault in. Barriault's going to take his time. It's his UFC debut. Bait him in. Get the takedown. Get the takedowns in the first. Get the takedown in the second. In the third round, if you start to tire, just negate the action. Don't get caught. Don't go down. I'm going to go with Andrew Sanchez. Like you said, it's going to be a rough night for the Canadians. And I think that
gets even more rough next fight, where we have Macy CHAISSON taking on Sarah Moras.
Cyborg CHAISSON, because looking at this line, I've only ever seen this a few times.
9,400, a minus 700 favorite. Sarah Moras, 6,800 plus 500. There's really not much for us to say. Like, Sarah Moras does not belong at this level. And it's really weird. It's just like you're going to have her die to die against this girl. Sarah Moras has, I guess, a path to victory, which is we don't really know how good CHAISSON's wrestling is. Moras takes her down and looks and fishes for a submission early on, but I think it's going to be a lot of one-way traffic, a lot of long-range strikes from the bigger CHAISSON, who was fighting at 145, cuts down to 135 now and seems very, very big for the bantamweight division. I think she sparks her. It's just whether you play the 9,400. Is that the person you pay up for on DraftKings this week? If you decide to do that, or do you go more balanced?
Well, if you got the money, I think you take the obvious pick in Macy CHAISSON. Could Macy CHAISSON find a way to lose this fight? She could, yeah. And I think a lot of that would be based on a bad weight cut. Because this is a girl that won the Ultimate Fighter at 145, is absolutely huge for 135. And she's taken this fight on short notice, replacing Leah Letson. So if she comes over and has a bad weight cut, and we don't know how good she is on the ground, and she is still green, and we've got Sarah Moras in Canada. The other thing, too, is Sarah Moras has gotten the distance with Jessica Andrade. Sarah Moras has been smoked. He actually got a decent chin on her. So if Macy CHAISSON does what Macy CHAISSON normally does, and that's go out there and bull rush and try to punch you out in the first round, and it doesn't, she has a bad weight cut, she gets out of the first round, she tires, and she ends up on her back, ooh, you got a serious problem here. So for 700, it's not the kind of thing I would just put on all my parlays. It's a bit of a dangerous price. The 9,400, though, I feel like you got to chase it. I mean, this is a girl that goes out there. She has a tremendous average on DraftKings. She
averages 105 points per fight.
And with Sarah Moras, it's like Sarah Moras is very one-dimensional. She has no striking game, and she has an
she's going to be panic wrestling from the first bell.
Yeah, but in order to panic wrestle, one would have to know how to wrestle.
Exactly.
So it's actually just panicking and
trying to find a trip or something.
Against Lucy Pudilova, she gets her down in the first round. She's, I think, dominating her in the first round. Yeah. It's a bad stand-up. For whatever reason, they stand it up. And the second it gets stood up, Pudilova hits her a couple times, and that's it. She never really attempts a takedown after that. She just gets complacent in the, I'm done. She gets tired, and she folds it in. I can't imagine that anything, what is she going to do different against a Macy CHAISSON? Unless she does get that takedown. When, inevitably, CHAISSON does get back up, well, now you're up shit's creek. Now you're too tired to get a secondary takedown. Now this girl's pissed off, and now she's coming on, and now she's going to bop you up and either finish you with punches or at least win 2 of those rounds. However, it's a bad price tag. It's the kind of thing that Sarah Moras could find a path to victory if she just fights a hell of a game plan. She's going to have the fans behind her. She's going to have, hopefully, the judges behind her if it goes to decision, if you're a Sarah Moras supporter. It's just she's not going to score you enough to get even the 6,800. Like, even if she's to go there and get a win, it's mostly probably going to be
It'd be like one takedown per round and just lie on top and hold and maintain, and hopefully they don't stand you back up.
But on a purely this is MMA, like when she submitted Ashley Evans Smith, she was a heavy dog, and the girls got submissions. And against Macy Chaisson, if she was to slap on a rear naked choke, she was to just hit a good scramble and take this girl's back and submit her, like it would be a. That's
why the minus 700 adding to parlays. That's where the danger comes in.
Yeah,
with someone who's 4-0, very unproven, and seemingly kind of getting the hang of the new weight cut.
When it was Cyborg versus Lena Landsberg or Yana Kunitskaya, it's like you put that on all of your parlays.
Yeah.
But this is a situation where
she hasn't proven herself enough yet.
It got to minus 700, but it's just a bad price tag. But yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you. If when I made my mock lineups, I didn't have enough money to really afford her everywhere anyways. So I didn't play her personally, but she could be a very high score and worth paying up for if you have the budget.
Eamon Zahabi is 9,000, a minus 155 favorite. Vince Morales, 7,200 plus 135. Who you got?
Yeah, so like I was saying with Brad KATONA, it's a bit of lazy matchmaking. I think this is good matchmaking. I think this is trying to get Eamon Zahabi back on the winning track. The kid does not nearly look good when you just consider the expectations out of him. You know, he's Faraz Zahabi's younger brother. All the stories coming out of TriStar over the years are just how unbelievably talented this guy is. His grappling's great. He's a fantastic martial artist. Striking's pinpoint. There's a lot to like about Eamon Zahabi. But Vince Morales, in Zahabi's case, he just hasn't lived up to his expectations. When he made his UFC debut against Reginaldo Vieira, that's a low-level fight, man. Mm-hmm. But that was by far the best opponent he had ever fought. He had never fought anybody to that level. And a lot of people argued he lost that fight. I thought he won. It was a bad fight, but a lot of people argued that he lost that fight.
That's when all the hype train was there, too.
Yeah, now his next fight, it's like, okay, people aren't on board with him. And now he's not taking on a low-level guy like Reginaldo Vieira. He's taking on a young kid who's like kind of a poor man's Charles Oliveira, but has good striking, has good jiu-jitsu, and is going to go after you. And then he threw that spinning back elbow like half a dozen times. I don't know how Zahabi didn't have a read on that.
To it.
He's sitting up against the cage. He's half what cocked to spin around, and he just threw it 2 seconds ago. And he goes in and goes after it. But he's in some really bad situations in the first round. Grappling checks out. He loses the round, but he doesn't get submitted. Second round, he's coming on. Third round, shit happens. But the skill's there. I just think he's had some bad bounces. Now, when you're the UFC, okay, the kid doesn't really fight all that often. But we're in Canada, and Faraz is here, and the crowd knows him, and the crowd, we got to give him a winnable opponent. Vince Morales, that's that winnable opponent. This is a guy that he's okay, but he loses on Dana White's Contender Series against Domingo Pilarte, who it's a fun fight. He gets stung in the first round. He stings Pilarte in the first round. Second round, he gets taken down and he gets submitted. He wins one fight against a low-level opponent outside, and then they bring him into that China card, short notice, take on Yadong Song. He just goes through the gears, loses a decision against the local Chinese guy. Now he's getting brought in to fight the local Canadian guy. Like, that's his role. He's billed as kind of like a wrestler. He doesn't shoot takedowns. He shows the same hook combination standing. He's athletic. He moves pretty decent, but he becomes predictable, and he doesn't really seem to have a plan B, plan C. Yeah. And I feel like Zahabi, a guy that's very well educated, very well schooled, and has that kind of background and camp behind him, he's just going to find the rhythm. He'll find the pattern. It might not be a sexy fight, but I think he either beats him, hurts him, takes him out, takes him to the ground, submits him, or is just able to at least win 2 of the rounds to get a 29-28. It's a great price tag on the money line.
9,000 on DraftKings is too
but 9,000 is
like,
it's yeah.
Pay up for CHAISSON. There's other people all in that range that you can pay for.
If I was guaranteed that Eamon Zahabi was a low percentage guy, like low owned, and the other option was CHAISSON,
he very like based on his line. Based on his fight style, he's probably going to be pretty low owned.
I'd be willing to take.
People are pretty out on him.
Yeah. When I look at his career before coming to the UFC, he's a finisher. But that's because he's fighting guys that are going to get finished by way of virtue of just not being at that level. Yeah. And now seeing him at the UFC, maybe that killer instinct isn't quite there. But he looked okay in the second round of his last fight. He looked like it was coming, but it's similar to Rory McDonald, maybe going in there not quite trying to hurt his opponent. There's something that's lacking there. There's a killer instinct that's lacking there. When Vince Morales' last couple of opponents, they've come at him. They've charged at him. They've made it an aggressive fight. Zahabi's not that aggressive guy. But I think he could get a submission win, and then he could pay up his 9,000.
Question.
Shoot.
Is TriStar dust? Like, is it done? It's like they're not really pumping out the same level anymore. Whenever they do have new prospects that come in, they kind of are a little bit of a letdown. Rory doesn't seem to have the fire anymore. GSP's not at the gym. Like,
you know what?
It feels like I don't have the stats. This is just a hot take. I don't have the stats on like their winning record recently, but it doesn't feel like people who train at TriStar recently have been very successful.
Yeah, that's fair. I just think that these things come in waves with MMA. It's almost like the fad. So you could be like, oh, geez, TriStar's not what it used to be. But it's like, is Nova União what it used to be? No. Is Team Alpha Male what it used to be? No. Is American Kickboxing Academy what it used to be? No. Is Alliance MMA what it used to be? No, but it comes in waves, right? Is
AKA's fine.
Is SBG Ireland?
What's wrong with AKA?
Well, I just mean there was a time when you looked at the floor and you were like, okay, we've got the heavyweight champion in Cain Velasquez, but he's
Daniel
not,
Cormier, who they have right now.
But Cormier is 41 years old. He's not really there. You know what I mean? He's going to be when he's got this upcoming training camp. He'll do his training camp, but like he's not the team captain there every day now. You know, and Cain Velasquez, he's shredded to bits. He's not really there anymore. Yeah. And Luke Rockhold, who was your perennial contender,
left to go with Henry Hoof.
Right. He's not really there anymore. And then you look at it's like the Josh Thompsons of the world that retired, and you look at a lot of the
John Fitch should have just won the title.
Yeah, but it's just like talk about another guy that left that gym and is just like an old grizzly war dog. So it's like, well, who are the young guys that they've produced? Well, Khabib showed up there. That is not a homegrown produced talent. It's like, who the fuck else do they got? Now there's guys that go there for camps. But I'm saying American Top Team is where it's at right now. You know, like there's certain gyms, you know, that even an MMA lab. I love the MMA lab. But like, what's their current record right now? Like they put a lot of guys that just go there to make the dance. Don't really make it happen once they get there. Yeah. So it's just like, it's a bad percentage thing. I think you would look at TriStar and you'd think the same thing. TriStar has not produced a homegrown talent out of that gym in a long ass time, right? George is done. Rory, he come from BC. They put a lot of work into him, but, you know, you get the impression that he's kind of at the tail end of his career as well. The Nordine Talebs of the world and, you know, like a lot, the like John...
Taleb never really had a very high ceiling, you know? I think he's been an overachiever, basically.
Well, there's been a lot of guys like that out of the gym. And then where they would have Tom Breeze comes over and Joseph Duffy comes over and Joanne Calderwood comes over. Like they were getting a lot of European talent coming over.
But then now they're all going to like Vegas. Like Calderwood is in Vegas. I guess with the UFC training facility and stuff like that. That eats into a lot of these camps getting foreign visitors because they can go to the UFC. They have like all of the stuff is paid for. So we know fighters getting paid 20 to, you know, even people who have fought multiple times getting 20 and 20. It's like, well, if I just go to the Performance Institute, I don't have to spend, you know, $1,000 a month for like a bunker and wherever, you know?
Oh, well, that's exactly it. So I think when you look at the landscape now, it's like, well, where are the hotbeds for MMA? Well, you got Florida. If you're at American Top Team, it's still one of the hotbeds of MMA. I think if you're
Vegas,
if Vegas is a hotbed for MMA. And fuck, do I ever like Colorado? Man, like it's a good spot. Like
Houston seems to be starting.
It's starting to jump. But do you see
Fortis, is that Houston or Dallas? Either way.
For what? Yeah, Fortis is Texas. Yeah. You're right.
Is it Houston or Dallas? I think it's Houston, but okay, maybe you're wrong.
But so let's just look at that, right? We just talked about 5 years ago, the super gyms were Nova União and Team Alpha Man, like they're done effectively. But 5 years ago, nobody was going to Elevation Fight Team in Colorado. No one was going to Factory X, and no one was going to this Syndicate MMA. No one was going to these places, but it's like and you know where people were going 20 years ago? They were going to Battendorf, Iowa, to Pat Militich's gym. Like, you know what I mean?
It does go in waves.
Team Punishment with Tito Ortiz, like that was a mega gym. The Lions Den with Ken Shamrock, a mega gym. What happened to those gyms, Paul? It just runs in rotation. You need a champion, or else your gym falls off. It's the sad truth. But Top Team's been at it for a long ass time, so they're at least getting their dues.
All right, we got Nordine Taleb taking on your boy, Kyle Propelec. 9,300 Nordine minus 335 favorite. Propelec 6,900 plus 245 or plus 275. Take it away.
Yeah, Prepelec's a super nice kid, super talented kid, a guy that I've been touting to get to the UFC for quite some time. It's just, again, this is going to be a very tough spot for him. He's coming in on, a week's notice, taking on a guy in a higher weight class. Kyle Prepelec is a career lightweight. However, he has fought at 160 pounds. He has fought at it's called super lightweight, 165 pounds. He's not exactly the smallest guy, but he's 5'9", and Nordine Taleb is 6'3". That's pretty much all you got to know. Now, Kyle Prepelec's not a power puncher, but he's an accurate puncher. He can get the job done. He can go out there, he can find the punch and knock you out. But at 170 pounds, it's going to be even less power, and he's going to have to go out there and just corral a guy like Nordine Taleb.
Nordine is strong.
Nordine's super strong. It's hard to back him up, and he's a very talented striker as well. His shots are going to have a little more pop on them. The one thing with Nordine is if he's taking on a better grappler, yeah, they'll take him down. If he's taking on a guy that's got that extreme amount of power, they're going to hurt him. But when he's taking on this level of guy that he can back up, he's gonna pose some serious. This might be like an Oliver Enkamp situation where it's like poor kid just doesn't really have enough to give him. Now, Nordine only really will land about 50 significant strikes in a decision victory. I don't see Kyle going down. I see this one going the distance. So if it's gonna go the distance and Nordine's gonna come out there with that classic, throws heavy punches, throws heavy kicks, but you could outwork him. But Kyle coming in on short notice, I have noticed that sometimes there's a tendency of he'll start fast, coast out 2 and 3. If that happens to him, he's in trouble. One thing I'm really going to applaud this kid for is that if you're an Ontario-based fighter, and he's an Ontario-based fighter, Windsor, Ontario, shout out to director Chad Dow, also
who has sparred with him in the past.
Who has sparred with him, I imagine got fucked up.
He should be sitting here for this breakdown.
yeah, exactly. He could exactly give us the exact inside scoop. But all the same, I mean, if you're a local Ontario fighter, you've got very few options if you really want to make it to the next level. At some point, you're going to have to either leave Ontario and go fight a terrible matchup in somebody else's backyard. You could try to make it to Alberta where there's a plethora of good fights available for you, or you go to TKO out in Quebec, which is a tough landscape. Kyle Prepelec did what nobody on this scene wants to do. He went to Michigan, which is a fucking terrifying regional scene full of extremely talented guys, and fought essentially the best guys they had to offer. So when you just look at his career as a whole, right? Jason Fisher, for people who don't know, Jason Fisher is a straight up gangster. Badass. No shame in losing to him. It was a Bellator fight. Loses to Kevin Lee. But those are a long time ago. His other loss, the Alex Ricci fight. Alex Ricci did make it to the UFC. He is a UFC veteran. So it's not as if this kid's fighting nobody. When he fought Kevin Lee in Bellator card, he was 22 years old, fighting an undefeated prospect like Kevin Lee on a Bellator undercard. He's experienced beyond his age. So anyways, he takes on this Adrian Hadjabij. They call him the Eagle. Kid's undefeated. Kid's a pretty looking fighter. He's a Michigan guy. They got this guy going far. He takes that fight on the same card that TJ Laramie got robbed against Vince Murdoch. You had to kill the man in order to get the win in Michigan that night. Yeah. And he smokes this guy with a brilliant spinning back fist, knocks him out, puts him on the map in Michigan. Takes on David Newport, undefeated. Sick body shot, roasts this guy, puts him down. His fight with Troy Lamson. Troy Lamson wrestled D1 at Michigan State. Troy Lamson, pretty boy Troy, is on a fucking 7-fight winning streak right now and is 100% going to be in the UFC within the next 3 months. Kyle Prepelec loses that fight, but against a superior wrestler. And then he beats Scott Hudson, he beats Cody Pfister. The guy is talented. He's not going to be a fish out of water here. But it doesn't matter who you are, man. You take a fight on a week's notice against a guy that's literally twice your size. You're up a weight class. The cardio just can't be there. Nordine's had a full camp for this fight. He's the bigger guy. It's going to be striker versus striker. I got to have the bigger guy with the more pop. Looking at the pricing on it, the minus 335, I don't like it because Kyle Prepelec, he's a tricky guy, and he's got nothing to lose here, Paul. Nothing to lose.
He'll get another fight.
He's got a guaranteed second fight in the UFC.
At 155.
At 155 pounds. It's just like Kyle Nelson. Yeah. Well, do I want to fight Carlos Diego Ferreira? No. But I'll bring the fight to him. And who cares what happens? I'll get a second fight. He does. And he did. And you know what? He hurt Ferreira. He gave him an okay go. Prepelec could be the same thing here. Nordine's been knocked out his last fight against Sean Strickland. He's 37 years old. He's getting a little bit long in the tooth. Yep. He's going to be a little bit slower than Kyle because Kyle's the quicker guy. Who's to say for 35 that's not your apple pie shitter? The $9,300 because I think it's going to the decision. No fucking chance. The cash game, $6,900. If I need to save the money, I would cash game play that. But as far as the GPP goes, he needs the finish, and I just don't see it materializing. But all the respect in the world to this kid, and I hope he's got a bright future beyond this.
We have Matt Sayles taking on Kyle Nelson, the aforementioned Kyle Nelson. Matt Sayles, 9,100, minus 230 favorite. Kyle Nelson, 7,100 and plus 190. This is like another situation where it's just like, you got poor Kyle Nelson. He comes in, has to take on Carlos Diego Ferreira. Now they're just like, this is we were talking about like lazy matchmaking again. It's just like, oh, this Matt Sales guy, he lost his first fight. Oh, he must suck. It's just like, well, actually, no. He's like, he's very, very talented. Trains with Dominic Cruz at Alliance,
Stevens,
and like he's got very good range management and everything like that. Like this is another tough fight for Kyle Nelson, and like they really didn't do Canadian fighters any favors here. Pick here is Sales. I'm not sure. Nelson showed that he's like at least pretty game until he got taken down and submitted by a world class black belt like CDF.
Wow.
I don't really know if I like Sales as a DK play at 91, just because it's going to be probably a striking affair.
Yeah. Well, I'm on Sales for 91. I think he knocks him out.
You do?
Yeah. Kyle Nelson, again, a very tough guy, but he is 100% a prototypical MMA fighter. There's not any one thing in his arsenal that he does better than anybody else at this level. He is not a wrestler. Let's get that straight. Not a wrestler. Takedown game, not very good. Also, Matt Sales' takedown defense, fucking legit. So this fight ain't hitting the ground on Nelson's accord. Nelson, not a striker. He's not going to stand with Matt Sales for a prolonged period of time and hurt this guy. Nelson, not a grappler. He's just he's an all-around grinding type guy. He's in the UFC by virtue of he's got excellent management. He's been brought up the right way. He's fought middling talent on his way to the UFC, and he never took a fight that was not in his best interest. He fought Adrian Hadjbeej, the guy that Kyle PROPELEC knocked out with a spinning back fist. That's his loss on 155 pounds. That was the one time he stepped out of his comfort zone and went to Michigan. He lost. He comes back. He got some tailor-made fights put together for him. He faced Jonathan Brookins out in Alberta. Not a very pretty fight. It's a split decision win. I had made a fight for him against Neelan Hordat Reese. He won a very controversial split decision and refused to have a rematch, did not want to have a rematch despite getting the victory. And it was a split decision. Like, don't you want to run that back? No interest of that whatsoever. Gets to the UFC, takes on Carlos Diego Ferreira, and hey, he goes at him. But you know what? The commentators, listening back to that fight, it's like they fucking love Kyle Nelson. They're talking up how nice his striking looks. Like, it looked very winging herky-jerky to me. He sat there, he swung some punches, he landed a teep kick to the body, and then he gassed out approximately 2 minutes in. Well, let's give him to the benefit of the doubt. Short notice, and is up a weight class. This guy's not a 55er, he's a 45er. So he takes a fight against a world-class guy. He got tired 2 minutes in. It is what it is, and he ends up losing that. But he didn't stay at his camp and put together some skills. He leaves and goes to the Performance Institute. And this whole camp has just been about get yourself in physical shape, get yourself down to 45. But the skill set is, I don't think it's improved. The other thing with Kyle Nelson is Kyle Nelson was like 23, 24 years old. He had an undefeated record. People were behind him. He's from a really small town. He's from like just outside of Muskoka. I frequently go... Yeah, I frequently go snowmobiling in the wintertime, and you go to these small little towns just around that area, and there's stickers in the window like, I'm with Kyle the Monster Nelson. Like, he's a fan favorite out in the small town, but, then he settles down with a woman, and he has himself his first child, and he has a second job on the side, and, like, this MMA thing is fun, but, like, it's not his end-all be-all. He's got to travel long distances to go to a gym with sparring partners to get work in. So you feel him ever so slightly dropping off the map. All the guys in Canada, everybody in Canada calls him out. He refuses to fight any of the guys in Canada. Prior to him signing to the UFC, he was supposed to fight a guy that was 2-0 named Lucas Neufeld in Alberta. He was not looking to test himself. This opportunity calls, you take it. And he gets that first fight. And they've done him no favors in giving him Matt Sales. Matt Sales is a badass. The one thing on Matt Sales is that he's small. He's just doesn't look like he cuts any weight. He's given up like 3-4 inches to Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson's not a particularly big guy. So it's like that's an issue with Matt Sales. But Matt Sales, he lost his UFC debut. That's what people see. Like you said, lazy matchmaking. Oh, I lost his last fight. He loses his UFC debut. It was his debut. And he takes on Shaman Moraes, who's a badass.
He got eye poked 4 times. He had to get like retina surgery.
His eye got finger blasted worse than a virgin on prom night.
Oh, God.
The guy fucking detaches his retina and still beats this motherfucker coast to coast in that 3rd round. His technical striking is something to marvel at. He swivels off the line. He's very hard to hit. Shaman Moraes is an excellent striker. They went toe to toe. And Matt Sales is a slow starter. You wouldn't get that impression from seeing him on the regional scene because he just ices guys really quickly because he finds the shot. But against elite level talent like Shaman Moraes, he's looking to set it up too. It's a lot harder. Against Kyle Nelson, there is no setting it up. Kyle Nelson will come get some, and that'll be his demise. Now, the last thing with Kyle Nelson is he doesn't want to take an MMA fight because if he loses, UFC's not going to sign him. And then he'd have to win 2, maybe 3 more fights, and he's only fighting once or twice a year. Like, that's going to take another 3-4 years. So it's like he doesn't want to fight. So he decides, I'm going to take a pro kickboxing match in Halifax out east. So he does, and he fights a mid-level kickboxer. And that mid-level kickboxer rendered him unconscious midway through the second round because he's not a kickboxer. He couldn't strike with a striker. He couldn't wrestle with a wrestler, and he can't grapple with a grappler. He gave a good account of himself in his UFC debut. But really, I mean, he looked good for 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. Anybody can go out there and swing punches, land a couple of them, and then lose. Oh, wow, he landed a couple punches. He'll look better at 45, and he's got a full camp. And I feel really bad because I know the guy, and I know a lot of people that know him. And so if they're listening to the show, I'm sure they're going to, it sounds like I'm talking shit behind his back, something like that. I don't mean to sound like that. I just mean Matt Sayles is a bad fight to be drawn up. That's it. There's a lot of guys in the UFC I could sit here and say, hey, he's got a shot here. He can win this fight. But so it's like, I like Matt Sayles. I was going to pick Matt Sayles. When Matt Sayles lost against Shane Moraes, I rubbed my hands together and said, I'm picking this kid next time out. This kid showed me exactly what I want to see out of him at the UFC level against a guy like Shane Moraes. They're building Matt Sayles up. He's 25 years old. He's got his whole life ahead of him. He's talented. They're building him up, and they're using Kyle Nelson to get one over for him. So Sayles gets the job done. It's a fantastic price, but you got to get on it pretty soon because it opened up better than that. Now I see it's at $230. I'd imagine it's going to go up even more. The $9,100, that's going to be low ownership because I think people are going to assume this one goes decision. I think he knocks him out in the second. He'll score up for that. So that's going to be my low-key pick, I think.
That may be less low-key now that you said it on this platform.
Yeah, well, that Russian card, such bad luck. I think that's the only pick I got wrong. Was the very first one, that Fiziev.
Like, your dog pick of the week. You know what we learned?
No, he went off as the favorite. He went off as the favorite, Paul.
No, I know. You called that line movement. You called that line movement.
But the rest of the card, like
the rest of the card we crushed.
Like Roxanne Modafferi even won. Like we speculated it hard. I said I didn't have the balls.
We had her on our DraftKings
but I did
lineup
not go the
because
other
she
way.
was so cheap.
And it's just like Dems to breaks, right?
I played her on DraftKings. It was great.
Some shit happens.
I played no Antonina. It was great.
So I feel like
everything except for Fiziev. We would have absolutely crushed it if Fiziev went out there.
That's the game, and that's why we love the game. Shit, anything can happen. But reverting back to this fight, Matt Sayles' line probably swings in his direction some more, and sign me up. That's one of my more confident plays, I think.
We have Juan Adams taking on Arjun Bhullar. Juan Adams is 8,300 minus 120 favorite. Arjun Bhullar 7,900 plus 100. I think Steve Ricciardi, I believe his name is. He's on the Jersey Boys podcast. They had Juan Adams on their show recently. They were asking, like, well, you know, this guy was like a Canadian Olympic level wrestler,
Commonwealth gold medalist.
And he was, so they said Olympic, and then Juan Adams kind of corrected him. He's just like, well, first off, he's just like, this guy was a what'd he say?
He's an Olympian. Did Juan Adams say he wasn't an Olympian?
He said he wasn't. He said that he was an alternate. He didn't actually make the team.
Oh,
so like this guy,
what the fuck?
He's like, this guy wrestled at NAIA. He's like, which is like borderline Division II. He's from Canada. Doesn't exactly have a good wrestling. Like this is all Juan Adams talking about. About him. He's like Juan Adams is like, I have over 100 matches Division I wrestling in college. He's like, I'm like 295 pounds. Like he probably floats around like 240 or so. He's like, I'm way bigger than him. Just watching that interview, shout out to Steve. Just like, I was like, you know what, Juan Adams? You fucking sold me on ya. I'm in.
Yeah.
Like we had talked about before with Arjun Bhullar. I don't know how like dedicated he really is to MMA. It's just kind of something he fell into.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. He's a good wrestler.
Is he a good wrestler?
He's
not a great wrestler.
He's not a great wrestler compared to great wrestlers.
No,
but he's a good
Canadian wrestler.
He won Canadian Wrestler of the Year.
Nobody here. There's no like in high school. There are wrestling teams at some schools and stuff, but it's like it's not like in America. Like people do not wrestle Like, it's not a very popular sport in high school and so on. So our collegiate level is basically non-existent. Like, if you're a good wrestler here, the only chance that you have is to get noticed and go down to the States.
This is how I would explain.
We are
to
not
somebody.
wrestlers here.
This is how I would explain to somebody, just to let them know, is who's the best Canadian wrestler you've ever seen? In
Bret the
MMA
Hitman
history?
Hart.
No, like, but in MMA history, who's the in the UFC, who's the best Canadian wrestler? GSP. This guy never even wrestled in
Taekwondo,
college.
yeah. He's just such an elite athlete.
Right. Okay.
Is what he is.
Okay. So that one you give him a pass. He's a great athlete.
Yeah.
Okay. But here was the kicker. Who's the second best Canadian wrestler of all time in the UFC?
Oh God, I don't know.
Yeah, like who? Like Sean Pearson? Like who would you put? Who'd you even put up there?
I can't. Like, I'm thinking of like all of them. I'm thinking of like Rory. It's just like, well, he just got blanketed by John Fitch on the weekend. We got Hominick was usually
they're all strikers.
Exactly, they're all
was
strikers.
a striker, and Yves Jean Boyen was a striker, and even you look at like all the guys we've produced for the most part, there's nobody that stands out as this guy.
Brian
wrestled.
Jimmo. He's more of a striker. Yeah.
He was a karate guy. Yeah. It's like when
we don't have wrestlers here.
There's
so if you're like, highly touted Canadian wrestler, red flag.
We've graduated almost no elite. No. Now, when you think about the American guys, it's like there's
Mitch Gagnon. Maybe he's an okay wrestler.
a guy that never even wrestled in high school.
Like,
never even wrestled in high school or college is one of the best. You're right. He would be considered one of the better wrestlers that we've fielded out to the UFC or to the big level in general. It's crazy, man. We're not really known for our wrestling. So he's 100% right when he says that. Remember Mike Grundy and everyone was talking about his wrestling? I was like, he's a Commonwealth bronze medalist. Wrestling, he got the win over Nad Narimani based on his striking, not the wrestling. I get the same impression here out of Adrian Bhullar. Adrian Bhullar, former Olympian, but he might have been an alternate. But I know I think he didn't hit the board. He didn't hit any type of like Ben Askren.
He didn't compete in the Olympics, is what Juan Adams was saying. That's not what I'm saying. That's why I'm relaying the message.
I'm just saying, like, Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen and Dan Henderson and Ben Askren, none of them medaled at the Olympics, right? Some of those guys were alternates as well, but it's like, fuck, they're really good wrestlers, right? Yeah. Matt Lindland was a silver medalist. But again, it's just like there's a level there. In this case, it's like, yeah, maybe not. The other thing, too, is that if you were an Olympian at any level, any country, you make it to the Olympics, that's in wrestling. That's something. However, heavyweight is the worst division for athletes because if you were a decent athlete that was 6'4", 250 pounds, you'd be playing football. You'd be playing basketball. You would not be wrestling. That's why the best athletes in the world play those other sports. There's very few big men. So what you get is you get guys like Jared Roshaw. He's the winningest wrestler ever out of Oklahoma, a school rich in history with wrestling. How did Jared Roshaw, he seems like a terrible athlete. Well, in comparison to the other guys, him and Timothy Johnson.
Everybody who's his size end up going to, they end up being offensive linemen for the Oklahoma Sooners rather than going to the wrestling team, right? Guys that are his size, they fill out their body differently if they're super athletic and they play professional sports.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of time, like there was Mark Ellis. He was an AKA guy back in the day. He's a D1 national champion. And then AKA recruits him. They're like, he's going to be so good. And he's fucking awful. Because it's like, yeah, he could wrestle guys that were big, herky-jerky non-athletes in the NCAA ranks, but now he's going to take on a full-grown man, punching him in the face that also knows how to wrestle. It became an issue. Arjun Bhullar's fight against Luis Henry, he looked terrible, but he's ever so slight. He completes one takedown in that fight, and he's able to squeak out the win. His fight against Wazorek, geez, man, first round he actually looks pretty decent, but in the second round, it's like...
Well, we learned that he has zero grappling. Like he wrestles, but he doesn't know. He didn't know jiu-jitsu. He didn't know what to do. He was completely lost once he got down there.
Ground and pound, not ferocious. No. Activity, not ferocious. It's interesting. In the Wazorek fight, you just remember for the omoplata. But actually, at the end of the first round, the ref's like, I can't take this anymore. Stands them up.
Yeah.
As soon as he stands up, Wazorek, taller man, starts bombing him. Head kicks, shot. He's hitting him. He's hurting him. You get the sense that Arjun Bhullar was one-dimensional. He got the takedown, and then what else does he do beyond that? The second round, he gets the takedown and immediately gets submitted by a very rare submission. Now it's his third fight in the UFC. He gets Marcelo Gol. In the first round, not a very good first round, but he did win it. In the second round, he loses by way of he can't get the takedown, and he's getting outstruck by Marcelo Golm. The leg kick's there all day because he's so heavy on his lead leg. A lot of knees up the middle to the body. A couple shots over the top. He loses the second round to Marcelo Golm. Now it's the third round, and luckily for him, Golm's not very good. He gets the one takedown he needs to win that third round, and that's the only one takedown he's had in that round. So you look at him in his UFC run so far, he completes very few takedowns per fight. When he does get on top, he's a heavy guy who's positionally sound, I guess. But it's nothing to be wowed at. When I look at Juan Adams has a good educated jab. Like, he's really long. He's way taller than Arjan Bhullar. Arjan Bhullar is short, especially for heavyweight. So you got Juan Adams way longer than him. He's a much better striker. He can take a punch. His last fight with Chris De La Roca, I like that it got chaotic like that. I like that Juan Adams got tired because he had never really been out of the first round. Yeah. So I needed him to get tired, and I needed him to rebound, show me what he had. That second round, that round ends in De La Roca, he's like, all right, I'm done. Like, I didn't even think he was going to come over the third. He did, but he was done. But Juan Adams just like, oh, baby, that's what this is like. And he comes out re-energized for the third. Yeah. Like, I'm going to put this guy away. Now people look at him.
He's
like,
still super green. He's 5-0, and he's young.
5-0, but he was a good amateur. He's 6'5". He trains out of a good camp. And you're right. The one thing that people aren't actually really taking into consideration is that he wrestled 4 years out of the Virginia Military Academy. Like, he knows how to wrestle. And by the way,
and
the guys
he's
that he wrestled
285 pounds. He said on this show as well. He's cutting 20 pounds going into the weigh-ins, and he'll be 285 when these guys step in. Like, he's massive. It's going to be hard for Bhullar to try to control somebody that's that much bigger than him.
Massive is an understatement, Paul. He's got to use an emoji on his Instagram account whenever he takes shots of like him after a training session, because the hammer on him is so big that Instagram was red flagging them for like nudity. I'm telling you, man, this guy is a physical specimen. 27, still green. Wrestling, a guy that's just going to take you down and hold your ass down, that's going to be a problem for him. But in this particular case, I got to roll with him. I think Juan Adams is a better athlete, a better striker, knows how to wrestle, competent, barring some really terrible judging. I think he gets the win here. And yes, Arjan Bhullar's father was a good wrestler. Arjan Bhullar, he's really promoting the Sikh athletes, and it's awesome, but that's his main concern here. It's not fighting. The guy spends a lot of time doing like charity work and going to events and promoting sports and religion, and like that's his thing. Juan Adams is in the gym every single day. That's his thing. So I got to go with Juan.
I don't have much on this last one. We got Mitch Gagnon taking on Cole Smith. 8,500 Gagnon, -120 favorite. Cole Smith is 7,700 and +100 he got.
Yeah, I'll take some flack on this one again because Mitch Gagnon, he's like a national hero to me. The guy's
the second best wrestler in Canadian history.
He's from Sudbury, Ontario. That's
the Gritty Nickel.
Yeah, that's where my family originates from. One step beyond that, he's born in Sturgeon Falls, which if you're familiar with the area is just fucking shocking.
Awful. Yeah, I'm very far too familiar.
Owns a gym out there and is just a good dude. And you know what? I mean, Mitch Gagnon, he was a really fun regional scene guy. He made it to the UFC. He was one of the guys. He was like a flag bearer for us back in those days. It was like, yeah, there's not a whole lot of Canadians winning at the UFC level, and Mitch has got the goods. Black belt and BJJ, really strong, nasty guillotine choke on him. Like prior to making it to the UFC, like that was his thing. Now this guy's young and he's rambunctious and he's strong and he's hungry and he wants it. And he debuts against Brian Caraway, who should blow the tits off him, and he brings the absolute pain to Caraway. And then got caught with a late submission. It put him on the map. Did not matter that this guy lost. That put him on the map. Now we're going to play a little game I wished I'd never had to play with Mitch Gagnon. When you hear, it means that fighter whom he defeated
is no longer with the organization.
Currently employed with the UFC. Walel Watson, Dustin Kimura, Tim Gorman, Roman Salazar. Then he loses to Renan Barao and he loses to Matthew Lopez. His 4 victories in the UFC.
Who are both probably skating on thin ice, which is trying to keep their jobs at this point.
His 4 wins.
Barao was a different beast at that point, I guess. But,
yeah.
In theory.
And again, that's the thing with Mitch is that the 4 wins there, those 4 opponents combined for a UFC record of 3 wins and 11 losses. All 4 of them were professional opponents. Tim Gorman and Roman Salazar never won fights in the UFC. Dustin Kimura won 2. I think Walel Watson won 1. It's a very, very low level. Now, when he took on Renan Barao, he went to Brazil. He took this guy who wasn't quite considered shot yet, and he gave him a hell of a first round. I thought he won the first round. And then in the second, Hennen starts to find his rhythm. And in the third, Mitch gets tired. Hennen finishes him with the arm triangle choke. It's okay. That's the Matthew Lopez fight. This is the concerning one. Mitch took 2 years off after the Hennen Barrow fight. He came back to take on Matthew Lopez. The fight was Holloway Pettis. It was in Toronto. This is his triumphant return after 2-year-long layoff. I thought he won the first round against Matthew Lopez. Then he flat out gassed and lost 2 and 3 and ended up losing a unanimous decision. So now he takes another 2 years off, 2.5 years off. He's had one fight in the last almost 5 years. He has not won a fight since beating Roman Salazar in 2014, Paul. 2014. Our show was 4 months old the last time this guy won a fight. It's been a long-ass time. Now, he's not one of these guys that's been sitting on the sideline improving. He's been hurt. He's been really hurt. He's got a bad neck. He's just got a plethora of injuries. And on top of that, he owns his own gym up in Sudbury. So he's not in training camp all the time. He's up in Sudbury. For this camp, he's come down to Parabellum and he's got himself in shape. But, I mean, the worry flags are there. He's been off for a long time. It's just a bad spot. Now, you're supposed to take on Brian Kelleher. At least Kelleher's also kind of got one foot out the door, and it's kind of fun. And maybe that old guillotine choke might work on this guy and slap that on. But against a young, hungry guy like Cole Smith, younger, I mean, he's 30, I just feel like he might have a good first round and then he'll get tired and allow it to happen. Cole Smith is he's plus 100. He's a slight dog here just because nobody knows who the hell this guy is. His entire career, for the most part, outside of his fights in Thailand, have been for Battlefield Fight League in Vancouver. Battlefield Fight League, they don't really put their stuff out online. So unless you've paid the $9.99 to watch it live, you probably have not really seen Cole Smith. But this guy's a career mixed martial artist, or just a martial artist in general. So he spent 2 years in Thailand, where he was sponsored by Team Quest Thailand and the Fairtex Gym in Thailand. 2 years as a sponsored Muay Thai fighter in Thailand. He went 15-0 in pro Muay Thai. He won 3 small regional level titles. He also took a pro boxing match in Thailand against the former IBF champion, 23-1. Beats this guy pillar to post over 6. 1-1 as a pro boxer, 15-0 Muay Thai. His amateur MMA career, not that great, 4-3, but lessons that were learned the whole way. And now as far as his professional career goes, undefeated, smoking through guys. Last fight against Tyler Wilson, these are not UFC caliber opponents, but what I like about him is he's versatile with his striking. He'll throw his knees, he'll throw his elbows, he'll throw his kicks. He likes to strike. But his wrestling is also pretty good. Checks out, strong guy, doesn't have a wrestling background, but good enough. All he's got to do is just keep with it in the first round. Mitch will try to take him down. He's got to keep the fight standing. And then when Mitch gets tired, Mitch's striking becomes super predictable. It's one and done. It's one punch at a time. He'll drop his hands. He'll get tired. He's a shorter guy. He likes to stay on the outside and just get eaten up by long-range strikes. Cole Smith puts it to him. Cole Smith puts it to him to the tune of 30-27, 29-28, worst case scenario, picks up a decision. There is a small possibility Cole Smith's able to put this guy away later round because Mitch is getting tired and losing in the third round when he's in his prime. 34 years old, 2.5 years on the sideline. Like this is not training. Mm-hmm. What he's going to experience come Saturday is just unlike anything he's experienced in years. And because of that reason, he'll get the adrenaline dump. His hometown fans, they'll be screaming, "Come on, Mitch." And that is going to cause another adrenaline dump. And I don't know, his lungs is going to fill up. His muscles are going to fill up with blood. It's not going to feel good. This Cole Smith kid just hit a home run. I get to make a UFC debut with a very winnable opponent in front of me. This is his Super Bowl. He'll come at for it. He'll get the decision. Cole Smith, $7,700. Yeah, definitely going to take that. Plus 100. Like it too.
Sweet. So, Brock Lesnar is retiring.
Oh, you don't buy it.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second. All right, here we go. So, I was disappointed when they announced. I was thinking, like, it's been years since I went down to International Fight Week and stuff. I was really thinking maybe they're going to set up something cool.
Yeah,
like,
something worth going to.
Like, for us living up here, it's like we're talking 5-hour flight each way, hotels, everything like that. Like, it's a big trip. You have to cross international borders. Never like going through American customs. Like, it's bullshit. They
grab my dick one time.
It's much easier coming back into Canada, where there's like, yeah, come on back in. Going down in the States for obvious reasons, based on history and so on and so forth. Like, it's just, the security is much higher. They're not so friendly. And when you're coming back from Vegas after a bit of a bender, you get a little bit nervous. So it's like, it's a big trip going down there, no doubt. So like when they announced, and they just kind of like no sold. They did it way super early. They did the John Jones versus Thiago Santos, and Dana White was always like slithering in, just like giving everybody like, oh, you don't want to see Thiago Santos? It's like it almost felt like it was already prepped. This is already all part of the plan. I guess like I should say that this is a greasy theory. Obviously, I have no facts and no sources for any of it.
Fair enough.
But like when they announced it, like there was a very, I don't know if it's just me, but like a lot of people on the internet are just like, yeah, like that's a cool fight, that's a cool card, but it's like this is international fight week. It's supposed to be the biggest card of the year. Everybody goes down there. It's a fun week type of thing. So they had her, and then they had obviously Holm versus Nunez as the co-main event on it. Here's the thing: if you're in negotiations with Brock Lesnar to fight Daniel Cormier, you're working on it. You're working on numbers and so on and so forth. You wanted to, maybe release tickets to the public early on. Who do you sign? Thiago Santos was a guy that they would have as like a backup dude,
Of course.
multiple times. Where you're like, oh, Thiago Santos just steps up onto the stage at the weigh-ins. Nobody even knew he was there. But he's there just in case somebody in the main event falls through.
Sounds like
Also, he doesn't.
that time they paid him to stay on weight just in case anybody fell out of that fight. Remember that? Brad Tavares versus Izzy?
Yeah, that's what I'm
And they're
talking
just
about.
like, yeah.
They've done it multiple times
Yeah,
with him,
that's
so
true.
he's
No, you're
already
right.
a company
You're right.
man
You're
in this
right.
way. He doesn't get paid very much, right? So I think what it is John Jones is going to take on, like, it's not that that fight is not happening. He is on that card just in case DC or Brock drops out, because who on earth could step in to fight either one of those guys if the main event gets squashed? John Jones. John Jones versus Brock Lesnar probably does bigger than DC versus
I agree. It
Brock
does.
or
I
DC
agree.
versus Brock Lesnar. DC versus John Jones at heavyweight.
Not quite as good as Brock versus John
No,
Jones, but a
but
damn near good
damn
second
near
place.
good thing. And what do you get to do? You just pay Thiago Santos his $50K or whatever, his show money, and say, thanks, we're going to hook you up next time. Like, you will give you the fight against John Jones, but like, he's an easy placekeeper to leave. I think this is all facade. I think that fight is going down at International Fight Week, and John Jones is the alternate in case one of the two of them has to pull out.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. But that's what greasy theories are all about. In my case, I think the UFC was like, oh, great, Brock, we just gotta wait for his wrestling contract to be up, and then we're totally gonna negotiate. And Brock, are you down? And Brock probably says, yeah, I'm down. Brock comes, his little promo, he pushes DC. Okay, Brock, we want to negotiate that contract. Yeah, but I got a clause. Can't negotiate until my WWE deal's up. So now you wait on this guy. Now his WWE contract's up. I bet you they were like, Brock will give you, for the sake of numbers, $3 million. And he says, no, $10 million. Brock, the last time you fought for us, you took 2.
And then you pop for steroids.
Yeah, but it's just like, the shit changes. It'd be the same thing. This is the problem, right? With 6-fight deals. If Conor McGregor is on a 6-fight deal, and he fights the first fight for $1 million, now the second fight, he says, I'm not going to do that. I want $5 million. What can you do? You can sit him on the sideline, but eventually you need him to make some money. So you bring him back and you pay him $5 million. Now it's the third fight of his deal. He wants $10 million. His deal doesn't give him $10 million. It's just that he doesn't have to fight until he gets what he wants. In Brock's case, it's a sideshow fight. This guy is not a ranked heavyweight. He should not be fighting a ranked heavyweight. He should not be giving a title fight. It's strictly, we're going to use this man's name and reputation to sell some pay-per-view buys. It's a fucking joke of a fight, but we're all going to watch it. And therefore, if it makes sense, it makes dollars. And
It makes dollars, it makes sense.
there you go. Even better. So yeah, no, exactly. If it makes sense, it makes dollars. This is a fight that's going to sell big. Brock Lesnar is Brock Lesnar, but it's going to sell for us. We'll bring him in. Brock doesn't need to get his brain smashed in by Daniel Cormier for $2 million, for $3 million. If they offer him Mark Hunt, that's one thing. It's like, this guy can't wrestle, and I got a good path to victory here. I'm just going to do some juice, come in here, take him down. In this case, it's like, oh man, Cormier is going to be pushing for extra drug testing, and I can't really realistically take this guy down consistently.
No, I think Cormier just wants to have this fight for the money. I bet you he'd say absolutely nothing about drug testing. He just wants this fight to happen.
Yeah, it gets
He's been begging. Daniel Cormier has been very quiet on social media recently. He also hasn't been on the broadcasts all that much recently. I'm saying it's happening, man. I think it's happening.
The last broadcast,
and this is all Dana White revealing all of this info just the other night like that. Don't believe his lies. Don't believe his lies, Cody. You're buying into it. This guy lies to us all the time.
This is how I see it. Daniel Cormier is like, I am a legend. I am a UFC Hall of Famer. I'm a 2-division champ, and in my opinion, he's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best guys to ever do it. So he doesn't owe nobody nothing. I did you guys a favor. I fought Volkan Oezdemir. What a fucking joke that was. You know what? I'm such a good guy. I decide to fight Derek Lewis too. Like, no sense in taking.
That's why they're trying to pay him back with the Brock fight.
100%. So now they say, okay, Cormier, do you want to fight Jones again? And he says no. He doesn't want to fight Jones again. Do you want to fight Stipe again? No, I don't want to fight Stipe again. I want to fight Brock Lesnar. It's a fight that I know I can win. It's going to be considered an easy fight by my standards of the guys I have had to fight.
It's going to sell a shit ton of pay-per-views.
And I'm going to make more money on this easy-ass fight than I ever had. So, like, why wouldn't that be where you want to go? The last broadcast I saw him on, he was fat. Now, mind you, the guy's in his 40s. He needs an off-season. As an athlete, he can't be in shape all the time. So he was fat. But he was also fat because he probably realized, I'm fighting Brock Lesnar. Like, I'll get back in camp. I'll be okay. Now that he's got to fight somebody other than Brock Lesnar, and it's going to be a Stipe or a Francis Ngannou or a John Jones, better get your ass back in the gym, Daniel. But watching Arjan Bhullar stuff, Arjan Bhullar's down at AKA. That's where he does his camps. It's like Kane's not there, and Cormier's not there. Like, this guy's training with himself and some smaller guys that are just happen to be floating around at the gym. But I'm not overly impressed by that. So. Yeah. Who knows? I like Greasy Theories, though. I appreciate that one. I hope I'm right. Yeah, well, we'll save this date if it is. That'd be pretty crazy, really. It would be. I'm probably wrong. But it's way more fun. It's way more fun to think about things this way. Again, I just think that they tell Brock, we'll give you $3 million. And he says, he didn't come out and say that he retired. Because if he came out and said he retired, he gets taken out of the USADA pool. Dano comes out and says it. Oh, it sounds like he's just completely done. It just seems a little fishy to me. You know why? Because Dana is the kind of guy that's going to skewer you, right? It's not like Brock says, listen, I'm done, boys. I'm retiring. Dana says, oh, will you take this fight for this amount of money? Brock says, no. Well, why not? Well, Dana, I could just retire. I don't need the money. I don't need any of this. For that price, I'd rather just retire. Oh, Brock's retired. You know who's the biggest slight in all this? Is poor Stipe Miocic. He asks for the fight. They laugh in his face. They stick him on the sideline for a year. Yeah, but now now they're like, Stipe's back in the running. It's like, what a fucking joke. This guy's one of the greatest heavyweights of this era, and he's just a fucking. If anybody was supposed to, if anybody deserved the immediate rematch, it was him. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, but hanging out on the sidelines during your prime is always bad, man. It never ends up well. He's actually super lucky that they're. I don't even believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. We will see in the coming weeks what's really going on, because something seems off to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just I've just lost my goddamn mind. Dog. I just come up with a greasy theory right now, but we are running out of time, so I'm gonna get through it. Okay, so we book Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic rematch for the title. Daniel Cormier, we know he's fat and out of shape right now. We know he doesn't really want this fight whatsoever. And the payday you would have gotten versus Brock versus the payday you're going to get to rematch Stipe. Yeah, it's like a quarter. Oof. He doesn't want this. No. Cormier pulls out of the fight, which I don't think he's ever pulled out of a fight before. So that's why it's a greasy theory. Cormier pulls out of the fight. Jones steps in to fight Stipe Miocic for the UFC heavyweight title. For the interim. If Jones wins, yeah, the interim, fuck it, who gives a shit? There's so many more interims. Yeah, right. So if Jones beats Stipe, now he's the interim heavyweight champion. Then you have the title unification on the January card, or the New Year's card. Yeah, and you can bill it as DC versus Jones 3, champion versus champion versus champion versus champion, and
You give John Jones 6 months to put on some bulk.
yeah, and I just thought, oh yeah, 6 months. All that guy needs is 3. And on top of all that, you've got John Jones, the real light heavyweight champ, and the fucking scab heavyweight champ, versus Daniel Cormier, the scab light heavyweight champ, but the real heavyweight. You know what I mean? Like, both of them are the legitimate champ, and they'd both have some shit interim belt on the other side of it. Cormier's is not a shit interim belt. He defended it. It's the real belt. But you know what I mean? Like, you never beat the man for the belt. So that's my theory. It will be Miocic versus Cormier. Cormier pulls out. Going to be Jones versus Miocic. And if Miocic ends up punching out Cokehead Jones, still a good storyline. He gets his title back and he gets to fight DC. It's fine. And DC never has to worry about Jones again. He loses to Stipe. All I got to do is beat Stipe again and ride off in the sunset. That one covers all the bases for me.
All right.
Okay, let's
Cody
do
Saftic, ladies and gentlemen. Follow him on Twitter at CJ Saftic. Anything cool coming up? No? Yes?
No, honestly,
maybe?
dude, I don't know if you were able to tell, but like, I'm massively jet lagged. So like, I'm gonna go home.
Good.
I'm gonna go home and go to bed.
I've had a cold for about a few days here.
What has been good is I know all the guys in this card, so the research has been very easy. But I've been up until like 3-4 in the morning, dog, because I'm so jet lagged.
Yeah, I bet.
So like research has been easy going.
Welcome back, Chad, our director. Thank you for making all the sweet cuts behind the scenes here for Cody and Chad. I am Paul saying goodbye, good luck.
Mayo experience. Experience.